So I guess a good starting point would be just we've talked a little bit about your work prior to coming to Pali, and I was wondering if you could go a little bit more in depth with what you did.
Well, so I've kind of someone my age has had multiple lives,
Mhm.
but when I graduated from college back in the '80s, I went and worked for what's called a Beltway Bandit just outside of Washington D.C. Um, and that's a company that fulfills contracts for the U.S. government. In this case, it was for sort of technical oversight of, of major endeavors that were pursued by the government, um, such as launching satellites and launching any kind of spacecraft to go well anywhere. And so there were the breadth of technical knowledge at that particular company. It was a small company; it's about 1 or 200 people, but amongst them there was the expertise to basically put a person on the moon. And so it was a great learning experience for me. And then from there, I had a girlfriend who was a student at MIT, and she got into graduate school at Stanford. And so I came out to Silicon Valley and worked for a startup company for a couple of years. And like most startup companies, that failed. And then the so then things got a little bit confused, or a little bit varied, because I went kind of simultaneously, went to work for NASA, went to graduate school at the University of Illinois, and went to the former Soviet Union when my wife became a Fulbright lecturer. Um, and so I spent some time in the former Soviet Union, where I got most of my stories, and that was my good stories. And then from there, I came back and worked for NASA for several more years, basically the rest of the '90s, and rose to be a senior research scientist for the contracting company whose name was Computer Sciences Corporation. And around the year 2000, more or less 2001. Went to work for another startup company, which also failed. These things happen. Basically, that's what startup companies do almost always, is fail. But that was sort of a transitional opportunity for our family, because then my wife, when that startup company failed, we agreed that my wife would work full time, and I would take care of the kids. And that caused me to focus my attention on the community and the schools, and that's sort of where I became a PTA president for a couple of years, when there's all kinds of stories from that time. And I was a Kiwanis Club chapter president. And I finally decided, after being involved with the schools and the community as a volunteer and as a parent, as sort of a leader of nonprofits and that sort of thing, that the thing to do is to actually become a teacher. And so I kind of finally bit the bullet around 2008 and started doing the things you have to do to get credentialed. And in late 2009, I became a credentialed teacher. Maybe early 2010, something around 2009 or 10. I'm not sure what the actual date is on the official documents. And then from that point forward, I was a professional full-time teacher, and the vast majority of that in teaching at Pali, and teaching in more or less the role that I'm in now.